We have so many stories in our lives, but our stories are not always heard. On the Hear My True Story podcast, we tell our own true stories.
Before the white car parked, our head teacher had scattered. Looking at him, I could only see his tie that was flying backwards, waving at us, and he disappeared in thin air.
I want to share my life story. I want to share my voice with the people because I know that just a small joke I can tell through this podcast, it will make someone smile.
When you ask me what I fear most in life, I would definitely respond to you and say it's fear itself.
We are fighting for togetherness. We are fighting for equal rights. We are fighting to end injustice.
You don't have to be a storyteller or writer because, guess what? Life writes the best stories.
Hear my true story.
I am a black man living in Germany. I would like to share with you a personal true story. It is about stereotypes of being black in Europe, or say, being black living in Germany. I hope you enjoy it. For those who are here for the first time to listen to my podcast, my name is Otako, and today I am sharing with you my personal true story. You see, I was invited some years back in Europe to do a workshop with children between 6 and 10 years. It was a workshop about African storytelling with children. We reached the school where I was supposed to give the workshop about African storytelling, and the coordinator told me, you know what? The children are really excited to do a workshop with you. However, one thing, they also expect from you to do African dance and African drumming. Would you do that with them? I looked at the coordinator and I told this coordinator, please, the workshop is about storytelling and not African dance or African drumming. But then the coordinator said, no, Otako, you are from Africa. You must be able to do something with them. The school had already drums from West Africa. Come on, I'm from East Africa, Uganda. I don't know how to play any West African drum. But anyway, one thing I learned in my business as an artist is improvisation. And most especially, if you are an African living in Europe and you want to make money, never chase a gig. That is in my head. I took the workshop on. The participants who are children, they entered the room, very excited, and were looking forward to African dancing and drumming. And then they said, we want to start with African dancing and drumming. The coordinator looked at me, I looked at him, and then I told every child, please get a drum. Every child got a drum. We sat in the room. Let me tell you one thing. You know, playing a drum is different from beating a drum. But for us, we started to beat the drum. Let me tell you, the children beat the drum. They beat the drum instead of playing the drum. And then when it came to African dance, me, Otako, I'm not a dancer. I don't know any movements of dance from Uganda. But then we ran left and right. We jumped up and down. The children ran left, right. They jumped up and down. And I could see the coordinator seated in the corner, very happy, is smiling to see that the children are really jumping up and down, running left, beating the drum. I could see myself in this room entering the workshop. Every child was excited. I can assure you, after the workshop, the coordinator came to me and said, Otako, you said you are not a dancer. You said you cannot play an African drum. But what I just saw now, Otako, you played the drum with the kids. Look, he showed me a kid beating the drum and was, yeah, that child has African drumming in his hands. He can play the drum. And then he showed me some of the kids running left and up and jumping and said, you know what? Look at these white children. They are really dancing African dance. Look at the African movement now they have in their body. Then he told me, Otako, would you come back again? There's another grade of children from 10 to 11 who are interested in your workshop. They saw you working with these ones and they would like you to come back and give the workshop. And now I remember in 2019, I was in France. I was part of this big project. It was a project that had 10 participants, 10 artists from 10 countries. And then we were on stage. However, my feet was paining me. I could not walk well. So when we were on stage acting, the entire play, I was limping on stage as I was performing my stories. And then after the production, we had a conversation. You know, all these white, old people and young people seated. After the show, they have to give feedback and discuss about the show. Because we are acting about food, the importance of food. And then one of the audience members, a white old woman, she put up the hand and she said, you know what? I like this production. I like this show. That African guy has put African movement in the performance. His movement were authentic. We are really African. And I like the dance from that young man from Africa. It was really perfect. Everyone in this production looked at me because they knew we don't have any dance movement from Africa in this production. The only dance movements we had were from Peru. And the dancer from Peru was there, but they never realized that there was a dance from Peru. But they said, there's a dance from Africa. Can you imagine? That's how I can tell you. The stereotype of being black and knowing how to dance and drum has always been following me. As a black person living in Europe now, I try harder to break these stereotypes. The more I experience them, the more I speak about them. However, it is sometimes difficult because people already judge you by the stereotypes. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Music by Edwin Matovo, hosted and produced by Otako. Subscribe to our podcast for more stories and visit us on our website, hearmytruestory.com, for more stories. All the links are listed in the show notes of this podcast.